everybody. Come on in. I want to share with you today reasonings of what I've learned about orchids to do with fertilizer, nutrients, watering, and what they need to survive, and they do in so many conditions. So I made notes, so you better get yourself a coffee or a tea, maybe a snack, or, you know, if you're somewhere where it's warmer, some iced tea, whatever you choose, and just sit down and relax, because I don't often read from notes, but most of this stuff I know and believe in, but I don't want to forget anything because there's so many other people. Some of you have been know more what you're doing maybe than I do, and some less, and we want to cover everything for everybody. And as you know, if you watch Mom's 100th birthday video, you never know what can happen in a video, and I don't know how to edit, and you get what you get. Anyway, let's get started. You know, orchids are one of the most dynamic plants on the earth. They can survive in all kinds of environments and in our homes in different situations, and we want to know through this how to give them the optimum things they need to do just that, because they're very hardy. Don't let people fool you who say they're not. They are very hardy, because when you get these facts down straight, and don't let this scare you, because I got big printing so I don't forget anything. So we want to go into how to get the nutrients your orchids need to survive to your plants in your situation. Okay? Orchids have a special relationship with certain fungi that live in their roots, and it helps them to absorb nutrients and soil and different things from the medium they're in. They have a very close association with other organisms and even insects that provide them with other nutrients. So, when it comes to air, orchids absorb nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and oxygen. And these gases are essential for photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is the process of converting light energy into chemical energy to fuel for the growth of the plant. So those things are very important. Additionally, the air source is a trace of elements, iron, magnesium, calcium, which are necessary for growth. Now, if you're growing indoors, then your plant is not in contact with as much nutrients in the air, because you are in a closed environment. Where if you're raising your orchids outside in a more much more different situation, the air is full of all kinds of things that can neutralize, give nutrients and energy to your orchid. And we're going to get a little bit more into that later. So there's many elements such as iron, magnesium, calcium, which are necessary for healthy growth. And the water provides moisture for the plant, but it also contains essential minerals and trace elements. So that also varies according to the water that you use or have to use. And we're going to get more into that too. The water should be filtered of all excess salts. Do not use water on your orchids if you are treating hard water in your house with salt to make it more better for you and not stain your clothes. I used to live somewhere where every time the washing machine did a backwash, everything in the wash turned bright red from the iron in the water. You know, then you have to look at rainwater and osmosis water and many other ideas to help you with your watering. The water should be low in pH, as a higher pH can cause new deficiencies in plant growth. Now, a lower pH is what your orchids want. And bark, which I have been growing in for maybe almost 20 years, bark, as it breaks down, it becomes more a higher pH. So we use things that help lower the pH as your bark is deteriorating, because I can leave, because I grow on the dry side here, my medium does not deteriorate for at least 3 years. I get at least 3 years. So as it deteriorates, the pH rises. And you can test your pH if you want to see how badly your medium is deteriorating for your orchids. You can buy pH strips at a drugstore. They're not expensive. And you can test the pH of your water. I did this many times years ago, where my sink water, it is very, very normal. But I have tap water, and that's what I use. I just use what I get. So the tap water was considered okay, but after 2 years in the pot, I want to test the pH. How's this medium reacting? Do I have to change it yet? Then if it rises and you're up around 7 or 8, or you're much too high, then you know you have to change your medium. Soil can provide your orchids with compost matter, and as it's broken down and it's absorbed by the roots of the plant. The media should also be well draining and light as possible, because orchids do not like to be waterlogged. So it should be well draining. Additionally, the media should be rich in organic matter. Now that's one of the reasons I use bark, because it's organic. Now if you're using straight lava rock or clay pellets or something that is not organic, then there's ways that you can satisfy your plant with different things that it is not getting because it's not in organic matter. And we will go into that a little more too. For example, some orchids evolve to absorb minerals from their bark, while others have adapted themselves against problems from not having it. So with the right care, orchids can thrive in any environment. How do orchids obtain nutrients from the air? From the air, they obtain gases like nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and oxygen from the air around them. I often, well, every day, at least once a day, maybe twice, I go around and I talk to them. They get our carbon dioxide and they love it, and they know you're there, and they feel that extra air on them. They love it, and of course they're letting off oxygen for us. So orchids are a win-win situation. Okay, these gases are absorbed through the plant's leaves and the stems, providing them with energy they now need to grow and thrive. Additionally, air helps circulate essential nutrients around the plant. So that is also more in nature than in the home, although there is in our, we open the doors, we open the windows, we are letting air in. And that's why it's a good idea. I have a ceiling fan here for these orchids, and I have a ceiling fan in there. It's nice to provide a gentle air movement for your orchids and get those gases moving around. And if it's not winter and freezing cold outside, anytime you can take those orchids and put them out on a patio where they're getting outside air, but they're still maybe protected from insects with screens and roofs, but they're outside where all the windows are open. Or you can put them right outside on a rainy day so they can absorb all the nutrients from the water outside and the air. Because whenever I can do that, I always notice a big, it's something, most changes that you make in what you do for your orchid, they may not be instant, but there are a few things that you do, you almost see instantly. And I think that is one of them. So, okay. During photosynthesis, orchids' leaves and stems absorb sunlight and use it to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. The glucose is then used as energy for the plant, and the oxygen is released into the air for us. Orchids are also able to absorb nutrients from the air, from dust particles, and they often will get iron, magnesium, calcium, which they need to survive. So these dust particles are so fine that they can be absorbed to provide the orchid with much needed nitrogen, which is essential for leaves and stems. The energy, the dust particles and what is in them that is the plant is absorbing goes in through the leaves and stems and then converts and goes down into the roots for growth. So it's an all over thing you can do for your orchids to keep them healthy. However, certain gases from the air, such as sulfur dioxide, ammonia, maybe you're cleaning your kitchen, I do that, maybe I sometimes use like Ellen's cleaning vinegar, and it's strong even for me, and I'm sure the orchids smell that in the air, and hydrogen sulfide in the air, many different gases in the air, even in your home. And these gases are toxic to many plants. But listen to this. Orchids are able to use them for nutrition. The gases are absorbed through the leaves and stems and then stored in specialized cells within the plant. The gases are then broken down and used as energy for the orchid, providing it with nutrition it needs to survive. Now that's some gases. You don't want to have, the flowers don't like the gas from a lot of things that is given off, but they're more susceptible. Aren't they beautiful? Anyway, this is just a fun thing, but full of information. I have done lots of research, and I agree with everything I'm saying. In conclusion, orchids are able to obtain essential nutrients from the air around them. They absorb essential gases like nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and oxygen. Now, how do orchids obtain nutrients from water? They absorbing minerals and trace elements from the water itself by absorbing organic matter that has been broken down. So if the matter is broken down in the soil, or we're going to say bark, in the bark, and then it's slowly breaking down. And when you water on watering day, it helps break those nutrients down small enough that it can be absorbed by the roots and feed the plant. That is another advantage and why I grow in bark. The minerals and trace elements found in water are important for providing orchids the nutrients it needs to grow and bloom. Minerals like potassium, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus can all be found in water and are essential for healthy orchid growth. Trace elements, and we're going to get more into that, how to supply all this stuff and what's going to be best to use later. So trace elements like zinc and iron are also essential and can be absorbed from the water. In addition to minerals and trace elements, orchids absorb a lot of organic matter that has been broken down in the medium, coming from many sources like compost, manure. In my watering schedule, I have a 6-week water schedule that is a variety of things, and it will be posted under this video. And if you want it, email me. I can send you a printable copy. So I use black tea, and one of the watering weeks, 1 day per week, is my watering schedule in the winter, 2 during the summer approximately, but only 1 day a week it gets black tea. It gets Epsom salts 1 day a week. Other things that I'm adding to my orchid to help and aid it along. All goes into the water and is absorbed by the roots and is good for the whole plant. So nutrients that can be absorbed through the water and watering your plant in bark are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other micronutrients. In order for an orchid to get the most out of the water it is absorbing, it is important to ensure the water is clean and free of chemicals. Polluted water can contain harmful things that can damage your orchids. You also want to make sure your orchid's getting enough water and not too much water, which we work at checking. If we're new, you just take that orchid out its pot and check right to the bottom of the pot and make sure on watering day, that's when you do this, that it's ready for water. And after you've done that a few times, and it's never hurt my plants doing that, after you've done that a few times, then you know if you're watering too much or not enough. So you don't have to disturb the roots. If some of the roots are stuck to the pot, just shake some bark out, have a look way down inside and see. Because quite often what happens, depending on the bottom of your pot, if it's flat and there isn't much drainage because maybe the hole is plugged up or the other holes are quite high, there's quite a wet area that can cause problems if the roots sit in it, because you want that water to go right through. My traffic cones are shaped like this with only a metal screen part way up, so water goes right through. Okay. And if you don't give your orchid enough water, well, if you're not giving your orchid the water, then they can't get the nutrients out of the medium. So there's just a total balance that way. By providing the orchid with the minerals and trace elements it needs, as well as organic matter, water can help the orchid to thrive in any environment. So how do the orchids obtain nutrients from the medium that they are in? They absorb most of their nutrients through their complex root systems. So the more roots, the healthier the plant. That's one reason over the years, I use quite large pots. Now the traffic cones, they look large, but the strainer is about here. So yeah, they're the size of an average size houseplant pot. They're not small orchid pots, but they have lots of air and the water always goes straight through. And whenever I check them, they have lots of roots. And the same with the porcelain pots for orchids. But we do have the new experiment going on with the glass, and I did put some drainage holes to help with air and water, removing them so they're not heavy for me. So we'll look at that closer another day. Terrestrial orchids grow in soil, and epiphytic grow in the air. Like our orchids, they grow up in trees naturally on bark and moss. And moss is good. It's just you find your niche and what works for you, depending on your home, your area where you live. And at least the moss and the bark are both organic, and you're getting a lot of natural things coming, organisms and stuff that are helping to break down that material and feed your orchid. So in both cases, roots absorb organic matter. Nutrients that are obtained from the media are potassium, calcium, magnesium, trace elements, iron, zinc. The organic matter is an important source of carbon for photosynthesis. So, a well-draining, airy soil is necessary for providing oxygen to the root system and preventing the soil from being waterlogged. So that is airy. Sometimes, if my bark is looking small, I'll put in lava rock, because I like lava rock. It's got tiny little holes that in my dry climate, indoors or out in the summer, it helps hold little bits of moisture. So I often use lava rock as a thing to help air move through the bark, if it's finer bark. So, additionally, fertilizers can be added to the soil to provide extra nutrients. And this is where it gets interesting. By understanding what nutrients orchids need and how they obtain them from the medium, you can ensure that your orchid is getting the best possible nutrition. So there's where we come into the picture. Everything is staying as natural as possible, and then this is how we're coming into the conditions. Orchids are incredibly diverse, and some species have adapted to obtain nutrients from other sources, like animals and birds and insects that are on the trees, and they're doing what all things do. They eat and then they poop. So anyway, then the rain comes on and it helps them absorb all that. So we got to replace that. We're not going to get a bunch of insects, although I did think about those cute little baby frogs at one time. But I mean, maybe in a terrarium that would be nice, but in the house, I don't think so. So this is why my watering schedule has so many other different things in it to help provide the things we don't get. So leaves are breaking down and they're getting water and stuff is passing. This is all part of a natural thing we want to keep as much as possible with our orchids. So mostly you find that in the orchids like the fells that are growing in the trees, where the slipper orchids in the ground, they're more in the ground living like a normal plant. They're getting all that nutrition still, but their roots aren't as easily accessing it because they're in medium. The bark of the tree or other plant material contains a wide range of minerals and nutrients the orchids can absorb through their roots. So, oxygen is necessary for respiration and helps the plant to break down the food it consumes. Carbon dioxide is also necessary for photosynthesis, a process in which the plant uses sun's energy to produce energy and convert into sugars. So that's why in the summer my orchids go out on the patio. Now we have it's a glass patio with screens, but we have a shade cloth over the top. So there's no direct sun, but they have reflected sun all over, and I know it does them good. And in the winter, now, this is the west side, this is the west side. It's the most light we're going to get naturally. But I still have to add grow lights around my windows or on the sides of the windows that I have to put in because the days are so short. So, additionally, water helps to dilute the soil and make it easier for the plant to absorb all the nutrients. The organic matter helps to improve soil structure and provides very necessary nutrients. The ability to adapt and obtain nutrients from a wide variety of sources is what makes orchids very hardy. So we're not kidding when we say they're hardy. However, with such a wide range of nutritional needs, orchids can be susceptible to nutrient deficiency. And this is what I have learned, and I'm still learning. Changes I have made in my fertilizer that have definitely been of a benefit. And I'm not looking at my orchid and saying 1 month after I tried it, it is or isn't. Because I've tried it for a year or so before I say this. So, when they don't get the nutrients they need from the environment, they start to show signs of deficiency. These signs can include yellowing leaves, poor root growth, stunted flowers, and if left unchecked, these deficiencies can lead to serious health problems for your orchid or even death. The most common nutrient deficiencies are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now these are the ones that quite often they say a balanced fertilizer, and yes, a balanced fertilizer is good. It was used for years and years, but some things we learn as time passes have been improved, and there are better things. So if unchecked, these deficiencies can lead to problems. The most common nutrient deficiencies are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and calcium, magnesium, and iron. So with the 3 balanced numbers, you know you're getting those first ones. But it's once you get into your other nutrients, calcium, magnesium, iron, and your minerals, then there are little deficiencies you might not notice right away. Nitrogen deficiencies are most common caused by low levels of nitrogen in the soil. Now, as you remember, every spring I put on the fertilizer with the higher nitrogen because they're growing faster, the days are longer, their plants are getting leaves, their plants are getting roots, they need more nitrogen. Nitrogen I read on many greenhouse videos I watched. Nitrogen, I've heard many orchid top places, top people saying this is the time you really need to give your orchid nitrogen. And I always say that every spring, every video in the spring, that's when I change to my higher nitrogen, which we can also aid in other ways in just a minute. So these deficiencies can be identified by yellowing lower leaves and stunted growth. So if you don't got enough nitrogen, maybe you're not going to get as many leaves. Since I upped my nitrogen and I have black tea in my watering schedule, which is very high in nitrogen, and I use it all year round on my, not every watering, but on when my water schedule says. And I have noticed over time a big important difference because it's more natural. It's something that you're leaving in your medium, and your plant is going to absorb it, especially for growth. So I have found I keep way more leaves on my plants, except for a few that might be sad and suffering. I'm babysitting right now. Now, phosphorus deficiencies can also be identified by yellowing leaves or poor flower development. Potassium deficiencies are indicated by yellowing of the edges of the leaves, while calcium deficiencies can lead to weak stems and distorted growth. Now, on my water schedule, I use Kelly Magic. Now, Kelly Magic is, I bought on Amazon. I bought the big gallon. I only use 1/4 teaspoon to a gallon of water. Now, some people only use Kelly Magic in the summer. Why? Because it has all this extra nutrients your plants need when they're growing faster. So for the growing season, I got Kelly Magic. And I can guarantee you, you get firmer leaves on your plant. Now, don't think that it's good, so I'm going to double it and use more. All my measurements are 1/4 teaspoon to a gallon of water. But you don't want your leaves so hard, if you touch them, they're going to break, and they could. So that is one reason I keep my minimum on my fertilizer in my watering schedule, and on my magnesium, Epsom salts, and on my Kelly Magic. I keep it at 1/4 teaspoon because of the variety of sources my plants are getting nutrition from. So magnesium deficiencies are indicated by yellowing of lower leaves, while iron deficiencies can lead to yellowing of leaves and stunted growth. So there's many, now you look at your plant, why am I, like, I call them the twins. I had that funnel-shaped red pot, and it was in a stand Jack had made that I'm using for this pot now. And I noticed yellowing leaves in the growing season like this last summer. And that was not good. So I took them both out of there, and I repotted them. And the yellow leaves haven't fell off yet, but they're still there. But I noticed now the leaves are coming healthier. So because maybe I had too big plants stuck in the pot. They weren't getting enough nutrition. It could have been. But anyway, therefore, it's a good idea to notice these things and see if you can figure out the reasoning. So, to prevent nutrient deficiencies in orchids, it's important to ensure that the environment they're growing in is providing them with the right levels of nutrition, including adding fertilizers, ensuring there's enough air circulation, and enough water. And it's important to always be monitoring your orchids. Sometimes whoops. Here I am. I'm back. Okay, sorry about that. The camera was over full. I had to go do some camera work and come back. So I haven't missed anything. Here we go. Understanding the importance of orchid fertilization. Orchids are epiphytic plants that typically grow on trees in their natural habitat and have evolved to extract all their essential nutrients from the air, the rainwater that flows down tree trunks, and potted plants from their environment in their pots. And they could lack access to natural fertilizing. Consequently, providing them with a balanced fertilizer becomes crucial to replicate their growth in natural conditions. Watering orchids is correctly is essential for the health and well-being. So, nutrient balance. Nitrogen in supports lush foliage. Phosphorus promotes root growth and development and flowering, while potassium is all over plant growth. So, now I switched to MSU fertilizer, it must be over a year ago. There's many different brands of MSU fertilizer. I should say food, not fertilizer, because yes, it's fertilizer, but it's really, really much even better than that, because I did find a big change in my orchids after. It's something you may not notice right away, but after you've been using it for 6 months to a year, you've noticed a change in your orchids. So right now I'm using my I haven't found, maybe I'm just using the Schultz's Bloom Buster fertilizer. Now, there may be another Bloom Buster fertilizer that is better. I used my MSU fertilizer all through the growing season. Now, even though you're using the MSU fertilizer, it's made by a university somewhere, and there's many varieties of it now, and most greenhouses and companies have their own version of it. But mine came as recommended quite nicely by a subscriber from Clouds Orchids in Ontario, I believe it is. So I used theirs, and I have noticed a big difference. And because besides your 3 normal fertilizers, there's added nutrients in them, and it is designed to work with reverse osmosis water, rainwater. The rainwater component of MSU orchid fertilizer mimics the crucial aspects provided orchids with necessary trace elements. And tap water. The formula is designed to work with tap water, any kind of water it's designed to work with. And when you're mixing your fertilizer, I always heat my kettle, and I put my 1/4 teaspoon into a measuring cup, and I add warm water, and I stir it really good to make sure that it's all mixed in thoroughly. And then I add it to my water. To the ones I do in the shower, I mix a watering can full of a gallon, and I use the 1/4 teaspoon, and they get a slight watering with my tap, and then they get the watering, the last watering with no rinse is with the MSU fertilizer, so I'm not washing it out. But I always start with a rinse with just straight water before I put my fertilizers on. And so that, I think, is important. The MSU fertilizer has been made compatible for tap water, and it helps mitigate the potential negative effects of tap water impurities and ensuring consistent supply of nutrients for your orchid. And I have found it's definitely important, and I really recommend the MSU fertilizer. Now, some people have come on, and I know there's been videos and they don't think so, but my orchids have kept more leaves. And that last summer was the hottest summer we had on record. It was very hot and dry. It was well over 100 for months out on the patio where they were. And they survived. And I don't think if they weren't getting very good nutrition, they would have. So I think it's important. It wasn't expensive. It was $10 for a little Tupperware container. Other places have it, so you might be interested in looking into that. And the Cali Magic, the hotter the weather, I use my Cali Magic in my water, but only a 1/4 teaspoon to a gallon. I use it for every watering day on my schedule. So if it's summer and my watering schedule says to water once, I only use my Cali Magic that once, or my fertilizer. The other 2 days, if they need extra water, they just get straight water. If it's real hot and I'm giving them extra water. So it's a 6-week water schedule, once a week. So if I'm watering twice that week, I'm not giving them double fertilizer. So during the hot days of the summer that's when you could give them a little extra Cali Magic. I've heard this recommended in quite a few different places, but I stuck with the same because I was scared of going too much, because my plants were still quite healthy. If you notice your plant leaves are limp, and if you can't use, if maybe where you live you can't get Cali Magic, maybe I've heard recommended to make sure you're using the Epsom salts then. So, and I use one watering week is Epsom salts, a 1/4 teaspoon to a gallon. The fertilizer's a 1/4 teaspoon. Easy to remember. So it's made to mix with fertilizer. So it's a supplement. It's like a vitamin to your food. It's a supplement. So now, black tea. Tea is composed of essential minerals, copper, zinc, manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, and many other minerals. And when an orchid is treated with tea, it gets these minerals and water from the tea and becomes healthier over time. Remember, orchids take longer to flower, so don't over fertilize. I like to say that. The tea bags is made up of 5% nitrogen. So when you're given your tea bag, you can feel good that it's getting nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and high levels of nitrogen benefit your orchids. So, and if the orchid is in fir or pine bark, which are both prone to bacteria, the level in nitrogen consumed quickly leaving the amount available for the roots. So tea bags provide extra nitrogen for orchids, raising the percentage inside the medium. So it's all very good. Tea also has a very high concentration of tannic acid. And tannins, polyphenols, are very common in nature. When it rains in the subtropical forests and tropical, water will trickle out, pouring down bark, creating the same effect that the polyphenols in your black tea bag does for your orchid. On its way down, the raindrop will encounter obstacles like leaves, twigs, open fruits, flowers, droppings from animals, and all these contribute to a high tannic acid rate, which orchids like and appreciate. Tea is also high in tannin content, and this is the closest we can simulate nature in our home environment, and it is a perfect method for introducing tannins to your media. So I did a lot of research when I made up my water schedule, and if you're struggling and you want to try it, it's certainly been working for me, and I think there's quite a few people that are following that water schedule, and maybe you can let us know in the comments and how you're doing to help any others along. That I know a lot of people read the comments because we're all trying to learn. You definitely need a higher dose of nitrogen during the growing season for your leaves, and accelerates the production of chlorophyll, producing strong, healthy leaves and roots. So, the main element in polyphenol, which is another word for tannins in your black tea, include amino acids, enzymes, pigments, carbohydrates, methylxanthines, and 28 other minerals to be precise, including fluorine, manganese, arsenic, nickel, selenium, all these things. And black tea has a pH of 5 to 5.5, which is what you are aiming for your orchids. So, when looking for tea to buy, choose the black tea. If you use tap water on your orchids, it will be slightly alkaline, and you'll need to lower the pH. And black tea is perfect for orchids because of its lower pH in the medium. And likewise with bark. If you have terrestrial orchids that prefer a high pH leaning toward a higher pH in the alkaline side, aim for green teas, which have a pH of 7 to 10. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for everybody. I don't normally sit and read, but it was information I've watched and read, and I went through many sources and made myself some notes to share with you, and it hopefully helps you out. But we'll be back to regular videos soon, and thank you, and give me a thumbs up and help make us more visible to other people that love orchids. Bye for now.